leaves turned red. In the quaint little town of Maple Hollow, where the streets were lined with red and golden trees every autumn, lived a quiet bookshop owner named Alara. Her life was simple and peaceful, days spent surrounded by pages of old stories, whispered conversations with customers, and the soft chime of the wind against the window panes. Alara had loved books ever since she was a child. After losing her parents at a young age, books became her sanctuary. They held her heart and her dreams. She never expected that one day, someone would walk in and write a new chapter in her life. That someone was Adrian. He arrived on a rainy October morning, the kind of morning where the air smelled of wet earth and possibilities. Drenched and shivering, Adrian stepped into her shop, looking more like a lost poet than a traveler. He wore a worn leather jacket and had eyes like storm clouds, restless, deep, and full of stories. "Do you have anything on forgotten cities?" he asked, brushing raindrops from his hair. Alara smiled, intrigued by the strange question. "Section B, next to the window. But you might find more than just cities there." He chuckled softly and walked toward the shelf. Hours passed. The rain continued. And he stayed, reading, asking questions, offering small smiles that lingered in the spaces between their words. Adrian was a travel writer, escaping the noise of the world. Maple Hollow was supposed to be just another dot on his map, a quiet place to rest. But he kept coming back to the bookshop, and to Alara. Day after day. Week after week. They shared stories over tea, argued about poetry, laughed over terrible novels, and sat in silence that felt full instead of empty. Alara found herself waiting for the sound of the bell above the door, for the quiet way he would say her name. And Adrian, he found something in Alara's calm, steady presence that soothed his restless soul. As autumn deepened and the leaves turned crimson, their friendship blossomed into something deeper. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the town bathed in golden light, Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "Alara," he whispered, "I never planned on staying. But now I don't know how to leave." Her heart trembled. She had built walls around herself for so long, afraid to lose again. But his eyes were honest, and her soul had already begun to write him into her story. "Then don't," she replied softly. Adrian stayed. Winter came, and with it, long nights by the fireplace, shared dreams, quiet kisses, and a love that grew slow and steady like the turning of seasons. They turned the bookshop into something more, a place of warmth, of stories, of beginnings. Years later, when the leaves turned red each autumn, they would sit by the window, holding hands, remembering the day he walked in from the rain and rewrote her life. The Lighthouse of Our Hearts. Chapter 1, The Keeper and the Stranger. On the rugged coast of Cornwall stood an old lighthouse, tall and proud against the crashing waves. It had withstood storms and time itself. And within it lived a solitary man named Elias, the lighthouse keeper. Quiet and reflective, Elias had lived alone for nearly a decade, tending to the light, watching ships pass, and writing poetry he never shared. One stormy evening, as thunder rolled in and rain battered the cliffs, Elias spotted something unusual, a small car, half buried in the ditch near the edge of the road. Curiosity overrode caution, and he rushed out to help. Inside the car was a woman, soaked, shaken, but alive. Her name was Clara. Chapter 2, Shelter and Silence. Clara was a photographer, escaping the chaos of London in search of solace. Her GPS had failed, and she'd taken a wrong turn that led her to Elias's lighthouse. He offered her shelter without hesitation. They shared tea in silence, broken only by the wind howling outside. Over the next few days, the storm kept Clara stranded. But something began to shift. In the stillness, a quiet connection grew. She noticed the poetry scrawled in Elias's journals, and he, in turn, found himself intrigued by the way Clara saw the world through her camera lens, finding beauty in forgotten things. Chapter 3, Hidden Hearts. Clara stayed for a week. They talked about broken dreams, about loneliness, about the sea. Elias read her one of his poems, nervously, his voice trembling. Clara cried. "You write like someone who's loved deeply," she whispered. "But you live like someone who's afraid to feel again." He didn't answer, only looked toward the waves. Chapter 4, A Picture of Us. Before she left, Clara took a photo of Elias standing beneath the lighthouse. She gave him her address in London and kissed him on the cheek. "If you ever find your way out of the mist," she said, "I'll be waiting." Months passed. Clara sent postcards, a cathedral in Florence, snow in Iceland, lanterns in Kyoto, always with the same phrase, "Wish you were here." Elias kept them in a tin box under his bed. He thought of her every night. Chapter 5, The Journey. One spring morning, Elias locked the lighthouse for the first time in 20 years. He packed a small bag, brought the tin of postcards, and boarded a train to London. He found Clara in a small gallery in Camden. Her photos lined the walls, old towns, windswept beaches, and one portrait titled The Lighthouse Keeper. It was him. And beside it, Clara stood with tears in her eyes. "You came," she whispered. He nodded. "I walked out of the mist." Chapter 6, The New Light. Elias and Clara didn't return to the lighthouse right away. They traveled, not to escape but to rediscover. He wrote while she captured the world through her lens. Their love, gentle and deep, bloomed slowly, not in fireworks but in candlelight, quiet talks, and holding hands beneath foreign skies. Eventually, they returned to the lighthouse, not as strangers, but as soulmates. Elias still kept the light burning, not just for ships, but as a symbol of their journey. And Clara's favorite photo, the one she kept by the bedside, was of them laughing together in the rain, a lighthouse shining in the background. Epilogue, Love like the sea. Love, they learned, was like the ocean, sometimes wild, sometimes calm, but always deep. And like the lighthouse, it stands strongest when it shines for others.